The idea challenge is going to be coming next week. I think they're going to announce whatever your product or your material is going to be on Friday. I think at like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So not that I'm anticipating people are going to work on it over the weekend. But that's coming up next week. So all of next week, we are going to be developing new products, making movies and fun stuff like that. So it's going to be kind of a good time being the idea challenge. It's a pretty exciting week. As far as today, I just wanted to wrap up the notes that we started yesterday. Kind of gave you guys all the terms, but didn't really explain all of them just yet. So we started with brand name, trademark, or trade name, brand mark, trade character, trademark, national brands. Got about halfway through it, and you'll notice that the word brand and trade shows up an awful lot. The thing is, it's just kind of important to realize that, put your laptops down, that for each one of these, they do have some slight specific differences. The first one with brand's just kind of a general, lots of different things to be a brand. I see we have the Adidas brand in here again. What is the brand that's on his jacket? Adidas. Right, but what specifically is letting me know that that's an Adidas jacket? Yep, there's 3 stripes. That is something that is specific to Adidas. They have used that as branding. Now notice that's not words. That's not necessarily a logo. That's just a style design that everybody is able to identify when it comes to that particular one. So we all have them. I mean, almost all of us have something on us right now that is a logo or a brand that is meant to identify that particular product. And so we talked about just a lot of the reasons for doing branding, like what it actually does for people. And it just allows companies to distinguish themselves. It's advertising. And it's part of the promotion of their product that people see something and they're able to easily identify what that is. And if you do your branding right, people get a certain feel about it. So for something like the Jordan logo, I see that one on there again, that Jumpman logo that's on there is an important one because that gives people kind of the feeling of, okay, I know that that's Nike. I know that it's high quality. I know that it's probably expensive, but it's really, really good. And so people have that feeling. When you see something like Champion, you have maybe a different feeling when it comes to that. That might be quality, might be inexpensive. So that's what logos are meant to do. They're supposed to kind of inspire feelings in you where you can understand, and you almost do it on a subconscious level when you see something. You know when you see a logo and you like it. You know when you see a logo of something that you don't like. So that's kind of marketing at work, kind of you being hammered for years on branding for certain things. You know where branding is a really big one, and I noticed this yesterday actually when I was at home. So my kids went out trick-or-treating. My 3rd grader and even my 8th grader decided at the last minute he was going to do it. And so they went out and totally looted the neighborhood, and we had this giant bowl of candy that both of them threw all their stuff in. So that was 6 days ago now, 7 days ago. Anybody want to guess what is left out of the candy? None. Oh, hang on.
None.
No,
Okay.
None is incorrect. There's candy left. Anybody want to guess what's...
Oh, yeah, the bad candy. The horrible.
Ones that like aren't as popular, so like the Snickers are probably gone, the M&Ms, the Hershey's, those are all gone. It's probably like
So the Hershey's are actually still hanging in there a little bit, believe it or not. So Reese's, gone immediately.
Popcorn is doing.
But that's what we're starting to get down to is some of the other ones that are like the Milk Duds and I don't know. And definitely as we get down to some of the non-name brand candies. Now, are there any candies in there that are actually like not good? Well, it's debatable. I mean, candy corn isn't really my thing, but for the most part, anything in there that I'm like, oh, that's gross, I won't eat that. No, there's just other ones that I might prefer a little bit better. But that also has a lot to do with the branding of certain things. So if you like a certain candy, you know more about it. That's the one you're going to reach for first. And then we kind of wait as time goes on and we get desperate. We don't have those brand favorites anymore. Then we start eating the rest of the candy, the stuff that's left over. So that's what a brand is. Brand name, though, is actually the group of words or letters that represent a certain product or service. The trade name is that corporate brand. That's really the company is the trade name. The brand mark we talked about is a unique symbol, coloring, lettering, or other design element. So there's so many different ways to be able to do this. Okay, I got to show you guys this. I apologize. This might take me a minute to find. Took me a little less time this time. So this is the University of Wisconsin Athletics Style Guide. This is their guidelines to branding. Wisconsin has this, most universities, most sports teams, a lot of different organizations have something like this. So this style guide is actually a giant PDF on how to make Badgers clothes. And so if they license out their brand to other people, see, Wisconsin doesn't actually make all of their shirts and things like that. They really are a university. So what they do, though, is they sell that license to shirt manufacturers or socks or people that make flags and pennants and whatever else. But they tell them that they have to follow these specific rules. Max, you want to do me a favor and get my lights in the back? So they have to follow these specific guidelines as far as the color. Now you'll notice that the color actually gets so specific as far as the C4012F. You need to have the exact shade of whatever that color is. That's part of Wisconsin's branding guidelines. So you don't have like a red that kind of looks a little bit weird. Have you guys, I know people that are in sports, when we play against Black River Falls, have you guys noticed that Black River seems to have a problem getting their orange together with certain sports? Like some football, I think, has had like burnt orange before, but other ones have kind of a different orange. And orange is a difficult color if you're a school or a company because there's different shades of it. This is something that the Badgers do in order to make sure that everything is consistent and the same. Now, they also have their primary team colors and also some neutral colors that you can use. Primary team logos. This is also their font that they want used, and this is how you can use the font. Has to be this one. In particular, you'll notice that it's got the registered trademark on all of these. So they have registered this with the government as this is our font or our trademark. Now, a couple things about this, though. Does that mean I can't use that font ever? Not necessarily. There's a bit of a gray area here. And this is kind of the fun one because, believe it or not, Decca has branding guidelines. So I don't know if that's the one that I want. That might not be. Shoot, that's definitely not the one that I want. PDF. All right, there we go. So this is what the Decca branding guidelines are. And again, any business, any organization can have rules for how they want their stuff to be used. So in case of the Badgers, since they're selling them to different people and those people are licensing them, they have rules that you can only make these specific products, you can only do it in these colors, and you can only do it in this certain way. Now the Decca branding guidelines is kind of an interesting one because this is a student organization, but this is how they do the official logos. So this is what is supposed to be official. We actually have one of these that looks like that with our school name on it. But as we go down, we have the what can you not do? Incorrect usage of branding. So we can't alter the approved colors. We are not allowed to redraw or change the logo typeface. So we can't change the font. We can't stretch or distort the logos. We can't combine it with other logos. We cannot alter, add, or remove half of the logo. We can't rotate the logo. We cannot put other things within the logo. So all of those things are supposed to be rules that we cannot follow. Max, turn the lights on again. Taking a look at the shirts that I have around the room, how many branding guideline violations do we have? It's going to be hard for you guys to see because
Oh my God.
So as we look around, we've got a whole bunch of stuff. So Southwest Decca, they're in Green Bay. They made a Decca logo made out of cheese.
They could have sued.
So that is definitely not going to work. Racine Case violated one there. They printed right over the diamond. A couple other people don't have the correct color. Holman Decca went right over the diamond. So, all right, you can turn them back off again. So we have branding violations within our own student organization. Is Decca going to do anything about this?
Yes.
No, not really, because it's probably not worth the lawyer to actually put out a cease and desist order. Plus, that would be extremely unpopular if a student organization started punishing students and their teachers for what they did. So that's probably not a road they want to go down. So they pretty much turn a blind eye to some of these things. Same thing with the Badgers, kind of going to this. If I took this font, the Badgers could say, like, that's our official font, and I made West Salem Decca out of that. Badgers going to do anything about it? No. Because, again, hiring a lawyer at $250 an hour to even write up a letter to say stop doing that is probably not worth it to them. So, yeah, on a small scale, I can get away with this. Now, if I roll up to the Kohl Center and I'm outside selling Wisconsin Badger stuff that I printed using their own font, and I'm selling them to people, like, with Bucky Badger giving the finger to Michigan or something like that, what are they going to do? Is that something they want to be associated with? No, in which case they probably would get involved. Also, I'm trying to make money off of their logo. And that's why you copyright things, and that's why you put in the registered trademark. They did not register Bucky the Badger for quite some time. It wasn't, I think, until the 90s or 2000s that they actually put a registered trademark on Bucky. So anybody could make anything with Bucky Badger on it because it wasn't licensed before. So when you license something, people don't have the ability to just take your stuff anymore. So your parents could tell you back in the 80s, if you went to Camp Randall for a football game, you would see all sorts of horrible Bucky the Badgers. Like Bucky giving the finger to Michigan. That was actually kind of a very popular one that people would wear those shirts and stuff like that. But you could put Bucky drinking a beer. You could do all of those things. And the university finally said, like, we have to stop this. These are people that are using our logo in order to do things we don't want them to do. And so that's why they put in that registered trademark. And so they made it illegal and did that. I actually was in a class with a guy that made like $10,000 off of selling pirated Blackhawks stuff. And the NHL found out about him, and they sent a lawyer, and they were going to sue him for like $500,000. And the guy was immediately like gave up, and he basically had to give all of his merchandise to the NHL because of what he was making.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
It might be stupid, but after that, I would have traded Bucky the Badger before Wisconsin did. Would I get the rights to Bucky the Badger?
Wouldn't be a bad idea. The problem is you'd have to pay for it. So theoretically, you could have done that. I know that there's people that have spent a lot of money to buy websites in the hopes that someday somebody will want that domain name.
Yeah.
I want to say one of them was Hockey Store. Somebody was looking it up, and like to buy the domain name for the hockeystore.com is like $250,000. So that's part of the branding guidelines, though. And actually, if I go down, if you guys want to see what you cannot do with the Badger stuff, this is always kind of a fun one to see what you can do and what you can't do. I think this is all their Under Armour stuff. And again, you'll notice like the color is the exact same red all the way down. And you can really only match it with a couple of blues and grays. Come on. Are they still Under Armour? I thought they were Adidas. They used to be Adidas.
Yeah.
So again, this is all of the branding that you have to do. Here's what you can't do. So you can't distort the logo, stretch it, flip it, rotate it. Can't place text in front. Is everybody kind of checking their clothing right now? We did this last year in sports, and we had a bunch of people that were trying to figure out if their stuff was no good. Cannot use the logo as a letter form. I'm pretty sure we broke branding guideline by putting the Anaheim Angels A in West Salem a few years ago when we went to Anaheim. So that was a violation of branding guidelines. can't do any of these things. So there's a whole bunch of rules when it comes to branding guidelines that you can't violate any of these things. Now, are they going to do anything to you? It depends. If you make your own Badger shirt, I'm pretty sure the University of Wisconsin is not going to sue you for that. However, if you're trying to make money off of their logo, then they're going to get involved with it. So as far as the elements of branding, trade character, we talked about that as far as a brand mark having human form or characteristics. Bucky's a great example of that. The trademark is a word, name, symbol, device, or combination of these elements that is given legal protection by the federal government. Trademarks are used to prevent other companies from using a similar element that might be confused with the trademarked one. So if I started making jackets that had the 3 stripes down the sleeves and I was selling them, I could get sued by Adidas because that is something that is trademarked. That is theirs. Which, even though it sounds ridiculous to say 3 vertical lines or 3 horizontal lines is something that you can trademark, you can't. So there's a lot of things you can actually do with branding. There's a coach named Pat Riley. Anybody know who Pat Riley is?
Yes.
Pat Riley trademarked the phrase three-peat. So if you wanted to put on a shirt, if a team won 3 titles, you would owe Pat Riley money. So you'd have to actually pay him for use of the phrase three-peat. Same thing for the word Super Bowl. If you advertise Super Bowl, you have to pay the NFL money for that. They've trademarked that phrase together. So you'll notice that when commercials come around before the big game, that's how everybody refers to it. Hey, when you have friends over to watch the big game this Sunday, make sure you have Doritos and all this other stuff. That's how they get away with being able to advertise for the Super Bowl without saying the words Super Bowl.
Ooh.
Now, we kind of went over this a little bit as far as what it does. It builds product recognition and customer loyalty and ensures quality and consistency, and it capitalizes on that brand exposure. Brand names, we talked about this a little bit as far as kind of the people that you know versus store brand and generic. Yes.
Does that mean you could trademark the word God and anytime you use it, they pay you?
The problem with that is, first of all, I don't think you can actually charge anybody for it being spoken. You would only be able to charge people if they were using it to make money. And you'd have to get that approved by a patent office, and I think they would look at that as a common usage word, and you wouldn't be able to do that. You could try it, but that's why songs like Happy Birthday are not copyrighted. Your moms run into this when it's with copywriting when it comes to getting show choir songs. Because if they want to buy a show choir song, they have to purchase the entire library or something, right?
Actually, so what happens with show choir music is a lot of groups compose their own music and pay somebody to do that for them, so they have to get all the rights and royalties to it. We buy our music from a company that's already done all of that, but there's a company called Persona, and they go after schools and sue them on behalf of the artists. So we've gotten some emails from Persona hey, did you do this? Or you didn't do this, and she's like, no, here's the proof we did, because they basically go after anyone they can.
Cease and desist letters and things like that. Yeah, so if you wanted to do Frozen the musical, you guys would likely have to pay some company who has the licensing rights to everything from Frozen.
There's certain artists who don't want any choral arrangements of it. Like Prince, you'll never hear Prince at a show choir competition, and if you do, you know that they probably didn't.
That's kind of an interesting one because that's been jumping around a little bit this last week. So this is kind of a deep, and I usually go into this stuff in sports entertainment marketing, but political campaigns this has been going on for decades. They use artist music, and artists get really, really mad because they may not have political views that are in common with that particular person. But, rockin' in the free world is always something that people kind of like to hear at a political rally. But then again, Neil Young might not agree with whoever that person is that's playing it. So Rihanna actually just had this happen. She found out that Trump has been playing her song. I don't remember which one it is, but playing one of her songs at all of his rallies. And so her company has tried to tried to get a cease and desist for that. The interesting thing is the places where he is holding his rallies has bought the license to that, to her songs. So it's not necessarily that Trump is playing her songs, it's the venue that already paid for the license to play her song.
He found a loophole.
They absolutely did. Axl Rose with Guns N' Roses, same thing. Welcome to the Jungle plays at Trump's stuff, but the reason why they can't prevent him from playing that is because that stadium or wherever the place is owns the license to be able to play that. So it's been kind of frustrating for some of the artists.
Like whenever you hear music played at the stadium, it's all like, why?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's why you might think like, oh, why don't they play this song? They may not have the license to play that song. So that's been an interesting one. The White Sox, this is another off-topic kind of story. In 2005, the White Sox used to play the Pirates of the Caribbean song in their pregame intro. And they won the World Series that year, and they sold DVDs for it. And they put that intro in the DVDs, and if you play it on the DVD, it's not the same song. They changed it because Disney did not give them license to reproduce the song. They were okay with them playing it in their stadium because they purchased a license for it, but not to reproduce and make money off of their DVDs. So Disney actually stopped them from doing that. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Pharrell Williams, he got mad at Trump.
Yeah. And all of them have been mad at it. The problem is he keeps going to places where those things are licensed and they can play them.
What about like the radio?
What about it? They do. Well, that one kind of goes in both ways because they need radio for exposure. So, but they usually purchase a catalog of things, and they can play whatever's in the catalog. Where'd you get it from? What are you doing with it? Shh. No, this is a fun one. So let's say, for instance, you purchase something on the App Store, and you want to use it at your fundraiser. Can you play it through the speakers? But you're doing it at a fundraiser. You're using the song in order to make money, though. Well, didn't you read your Apple agreement? Well, believe it or not, when you guys sign that Apple user agreement and you click the box that, yes, you understand everything in it, that's part of it that you can't make any money off of those things. So it's actually very important. I've been pretty fortunate with the songs that we put into Decca videos because they're popular, but I always give credit to the artist, and we're not making any money off those videos. Now, that changes around everything if you're trying to use that to make money. If you want to plug in your headphones and play it during open gym and basketball, go ahead. You're not trying to make any money there. The problem is, though, is if you're hosting a league or doing something where you are collecting money, then they're going to come after you because they don't want you to make money using their stuff. Yes? We've been pretty good as far as music. We've been bounced a couple of times, but some artists just don't want anybody using their music for anything. But it's probably been at least 5 years. It's been a while since that's happened. Actually, ever since I started crediting artists in our YouTube videos, and at the end of all of our Decca videos, I always write who the artist is and the song and everything. And ever since we started doing that, we've had no problems. Because really, it's kind of a form of promotion, because why is Foster the People going to get mad if we're giving them credit and also promoting their song? Probably a better thing for them.
So, like, let's say you had a DJ at a party, but it was $5 to get in. Is that really
DJ should have a license. Yep, he shouldn't necessarily be able to just rip whatever he wants, and that's a tricky thing too. Now, if he buys that catalog, he may have access to tons and tons and tons of music without him necessarily having to download it or pirate it or do things like that. But also, you guys do have to realize that there's a level of size in which you can operate and steal stuff and be small enough that nobody's going to notice. So if you guys are pirating music online, are they going to come after one individual 15-year-old? Probably not.
Yeah.
I would doubt it.
I would.
It all kind of depends on the size of what you're trying to do. But if I'm a car dealership and I'm using, music to promote my dealership and using them in commercials, then I'm probably big enough. Somebody might notice me. So anyway, we talked a little bit about private distributor brands. These would be an example of the stuff from Walmart. I can't remember the name of it. Somebody tell me the Walmart brand. Great Value. What is the Target brand? It's not Greater Value. What's that? No, I think that one is Festival's brand. Or no, I know what you're talking about. There's one that's an Everyday Essentials or something like that. I think that's a Walmart brand. Or what's that? Is it? I know that Target has one. I can't remember what it is, but it's a lot like Great Value. In that they have their store brand. You can only get it at Target. Generally, it's a little bit cheaper. Now, generic brands, and I think I kind of left off on this one yesterday, this is really hard to actually find real generic stuff. We found a great one yesterday. Do you remember what that was called? The loaf? Generic brand of... it was loaf something, wasn't it? Lunch and Loaf. Oh, yeah, the Lunch and Loaf. So this is what generic would look like. Again, actual, and the term store brand has been kind of substituted for generic. It's really not the same thing. Generic brand, this is a company that does not spend any money on advertising, on packaging, on any of that stuff. This is just the essentials of the food and the can that it comes in. That is what generic actually is. So, yes, it looks like this. Anybody know what Lunch and Loaf is? Spam. So that's what generic brands look like, and it might be any product that you could think of. They're going to be really, really, really cheap because they don't spend any money on making the packaging look good. So that was generic brand. As far as some of the branding strategies, brand extensions, brand licensing, mixed branding, and co-branding are actually kind of fun. A brand extension is a branding strategy that uses an existing brand name to promote a new or improved product in a company's product line. So the strategy's risk is overtaking a product line and diluting the brand with too many products. How many versions of Coke are there?
Too many.
I like
Coke, Diet Coke, caffeine-free Diet Coke, regular Coke, caffeine-free Coke, new Coke, cherry Coke, Diet Cherry Coke,
Oh, are we talking about current?
chocolate cherry Coke. I mean, there's so many different extensions of the Coke brand that it goes on. The only real fear they have, though, is that they might start diluting their own brand and might hurt the popularity of regular Coke by adding in all these different ones. But you see a lot with Mountain Dew also. How many flavors of Mountain Dew are there now? There's a bunch. Now, brand licensing, I did talk about this one, is a legal authorization by a trademark brand owner to allow another company to use its brand mark, or trade character for a fee. Got into this just a little bit. This is a great deal for sports teams. You give me another example here. Let's pull up. No, we'll go Cubs today. So, what do the Chicago Cubs do?
Play baseball.
They play baseball. They are a baseball team.
I like football.
So their job is to play baseball. They do not design pennants. They don't design shirts. They don't do a lot of those things. What they do, though, is they have their brand that a company then approaches them and say, hey, we'd like to make little mini pennants with your brand on it. And the Cubs sit back and say, sounds good. You have to have exactly the right colors, exactly the right logo, and we get to look at it before you sell it. And the company says, great. So this company, which I believe is Rico Industries, purchased the license to be able to make these. So they have to kick money from this to Major League Baseball. And that eventually filters to the Cubs. There are a couple of things that are really important about this. First of all, is this a bad deal for the Cubs? This is practically free money for them. So licensing out your likeness is, people pay you to just use your name on things. That's fantastic. What's the downside, though? Is there a downside to licensing?
No.
Freaking bad.
I got too many people have the thing.
You could be overexposed, but you could also have just really, really crappy products, and it might make your brand look bad. Can you find the Chicago Cubs logo on a gun? Not legally, you can't, because that's something that they wouldn't license their brand out. Because let's say that somebody was involved in a robbery and they had a Chicago Cubs gun. That looks terrible for the Cubs. They don't want that. You can't really find Chicago Cubs alcohol or anything that is inappropriate because they don't license those things out. That's the good news. But the problem is you could also have somebody who commits a robbery that's wearing a Cubs hat. It's a licensed thing. They decided to wear it. That is your brand that is now showing up in somebody's mugshot.
That looks bad.
So that does happen. So licensing can be a good thing, but does kind of have a bit of a downside to it. So when you license that brand, though, and this is what Jordan has been so fantastic with his brand, and that's how he's made all of his money. It wasn't really through basketball, it's through branding. Jordan sold his license and gave people the ability to make shirts and shoes and all that other fun stuff. Star Wars made a lot of money from the movies, but they've made billions off of the toys, the lunch boxes, all the other things that they've licensed out and gave people the ability to purchase it. Now, for me, if I make tiny little pennants, what am I going to do with it if it doesn't have anything really on it? But if I have Major League Baseball teams on it, then people might want to buy it. All right, I think we're almost done here. Mixed branding. Mixed branding is selling a combination of manufacturer and private distributor and generic brands. So most stores have kind of mixed brand kind of stuff. Co-branding, though, is the combination of one or more brands in the manufacture of a product or in a delivery for a service. This happens quite a bit when it comes to movies. So what's the next kids movie to come out, or next Disney movie? Any of them coming out anytime soon?
I don't know. Oh, Dr. Seuss.
Generally, Dr. Seuss is a good one. So generally, when you have movies that come out, they do have a pairing with McDonald's or some fast food place, right? So then you can get the Happy Meal toys with whatever the thing is. That is an extension of co-branding when you take two different products and put them together and both of them kind of play off each other. So on one hand, you're getting promoted the movie that's coming out, and on the other hand, McDonald's is getting promoted and also being connected to that movie in some sort of a way. All right, I gave you guys an assignment yesterday. I'd like you to wrap that part of it up, where you had to do a picture for all of the different vocab words.
You gotta roll.
Wrap it up, hand it in to Edmodo. Paper done by Friday.
The entire thing?
Yep.
Even the things that we skipped before?
Yeah, which ones?
The, I can't remember. We skipped through them and then went
4,
straight
5,
to
and
the
6.
revenue and then we went to the cost.
Yep.
So
I
one
can
all
give
the
you
way
some
to the
time
very
on it,
end.
but your solutions, channel management, and that stuff.
Okay.
We're looking at Friday.
So we are going back to the ones that we skipped before.
Yep.
Okay. Just had to make sure on that. Also, something weird just happened with my computer connection to
Totally.
figure out what's going on.
So then it's just all on a
Yep. Oh, yes, it is.